Melanie here from International TEFL Academy in Costa Rica. Thanks for tuning in to our grammar presentations. Those of you that are already teaching English, we hope this is a good opportunity for you to refresh the content that you need to teach so you can be more confident in the classroom. And those of you that are thinking about teaching English abroad, we hope this is the first step in embarking in that journey. Let's get started.
Today we're going to be looking at the passive voice. Alright, let's get the basis down before we start looking at all of the tenses. My first example reads, Cervantes wrote the book. In this sentence, I have a subject, a verb, and an object. Hopefully at this point you know that a subject does the action. So in this sentence, Cervantes is the subject. Wrote is our verb because remember, verbs are the action in this sentence. And the object is what receives the action. So in this case, book is my object. When your sentence is in this order, subject, verb, object, you know you're looking at an example of the active voice. I'll say that one more time. When I'm looking at a sentence and it's in the order of subject, verb, object, like our example, Cervantes wrote the book, I know I'm looking at a sentence that's in the active voice. In order to change my sentence to the passive voice, I'm going to move the object to the subject place. In this case, our passive voice sentence would be, the book was written by Cervantes. Again, I moved the object to the subject place. However, it is still an object. So the book did not do anything, it still received the action. So in order to create a sentence in the passive voice, I will start with the object. It will then be followed by a conjugation of the verb to be and a past participle. And finally, I can conclude the sentence with the by and the subject that did the action. That part, the by Cervantes part, is considered optional. Grammatically speaking, it is not necessary in this sentence. So again, our form is object plus a conjugation of the verb to be and then a past participle to create the passive voice. If we compare the active and the passive voice sentences, we will see that in the active voice, the emphasis is on the subject. In this particular example, Cervantes. Where in the passive voice, the emphasis or the stress is on the object, in this case, the book. You will also see in the real world that passive voice is often used in the news. So when our students are listening to the news or reading the news, they will see many examples of the passive voice. So that's why it's important that we teach it and they practice it and they understand it well. For example, the bank was robbed. That's a great example of a sentence that you will hear or read in the news that is using the passive voice. The bank didn't do anything, the bank received, so it's the object. Therefore, I know it's the passive voice. Likewise, the roads are being repaired. That's another example of the passive voice that might be used in the news. Again, the roads didn't do anything, the roads are receiving. So it's the object, therefore it's the passive voice. And the reason that the passive voice is often used in the news is because we don't know who did the action, or frankly, we don't care. For example, who robbed the bank? A criminal, a thief, but we may not know. Same with the roads are being repaired. We're focusing on the action, not who is doing the action. Let's take a look at the passive voice being used in the present simple tense. The passive voice can be used in all tenses. However, today we're just going to look at 3 different examples. We're going to start by looking at the present simple. Let's look at our example, my mom makes cookies. Again, my mom is the subject of the sentence because she is the one doing the action. Makes is my verb or the action in the sentence, and cookies is the object. Cookies is receiving the action. Don't forget, when my sentence is in that order, subject, verb, object, I know I'm looking at an example of the active voice. In order to change this to the passive voice, I'm going to move cookies, my object, to the subject place, conjugate the verb to be in the present simple, followed by my past participle, in this case, made, and then I can finish my sentence with by my mom. Grammatically speaking, by my mom is not necessary. However, my present simple example passive voice is cookies are made by my mom. I moved cookies, my object, to the subject place, followed by the conjugation of the verb to be in the present simple, and then I needed the past participle.
Clothes. The clothes are folded.
The clothes
are put away.
Bed. The bed is made.
I'll say the bed is neatly made.
Window. The window is opened.
The window is open.
Didn't we say that twice? I was kind of let's go with TV. The TV is not on.
The TV is turned off.
Next, we'll take a look at the passive voice being used in the present continuous. My example reads, my mom is making cookies. As always, we want to identify this as being the active voice by looking for our subject, in this case my mom, then our verb is making in the present continuous tense, followed by the object cookies. Because it is in that order, subject, verb, object, I know I'm looking at my active voice example. In order to change this example in the present continuous tense to the passive voice, I'm going to move my object cookies to the subject place, follow it by the verb to be being used in the present continuous, in this case are because cookies is plural, and then my gerund being. Then I will follow it by the past participle made, and finally I can finish my sentence by the by with my subject, by my mom. So the whole passive voice sentence reads, cookies are being made by my mom. So my form of the present continuous passive voice will be the object followed by am, is, or are, the gerund being, and the past participle. Again, you need to make sure that whatever tense is being used in the active voice is the tense that you use in the passive voice. They should match. You should retain the tense being used. For our final tense, we will look at the past simple of the passive voice. As always, let's look at our example. My mom made cookies. The subject of the sentence is my mom. She's the one that did the action in the past. Made is my verb, conjugated in the past simple, and cookies is my object, receiving the action. I know I'm looking at the active voice because my sentence is in that order, subject, verb, object. To change this particular example in the past simple tense to the passive voice, I will move my object cookies to the subject place, conjugate the verb to be in the past simple, in this case plural were, follow it by the past participle made, and I can finish my sentence with by my mom, referring to the person who did the action. To create sentences in the passive voice with the past simple tense, I will start my sentence with object followed by was or were and use my past participle.
Apples. The apples were sliced.
The apples were ate.
Or the apples were cut.
The apples were eaten.
Good.
Okay.
Nice. The bread was used.
Bread was sliced.
The bread was cut.
I have eggs. The eggs were used.
The eggs were cracked.
Sure.
The eggs were gone.
Cereal. The cereal box was opened.
And I can do this with all tenses. I just need to make sure that I move my object to the subject place, followed by the correct conjugation of the verb to be in whatever tense I'm working with, then use the past participle. And remember, the difference between active voice and passive voice is the stress or the emphasis. Active voice, the emphasis is on the subject because the subject starts the sentence, and passive voice would be on the object or the action in the sentence. For example, the material has been taught. I know that this is a passive voice sentence because material is an object. It did not do anything, it has received the action. So I conjugate the verb to be, in this case in the present perfect tense, and I would follow it by the past participle, taught. Please also remember that the passive voice is often used in the news, so our students will hear and read it frequently, so we need to make sure they understand it well.